Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel here today. And for those of you who don't know Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm a 23-year-old girl from Italy, and I have been part basically of the study ground community for 4 years. I was always saying almost 4 years, but now it's 4 years from last month actually. And currently I'm studying languages and cultures for communication. It's a master's degree at University of Milan, majoring currently in English and Japanese. But throughout my whole experience as a student, especially in the Italian classic system, I had the chance to study French, Spanish, and German as well.
Oh, so you said StudyGram, so you're mostly on Instagram then. Although you
Yeah,
have your YouTube channel as well, which I'll link in the description down below so that you
thank
guys can
you.
head over to her channel. But your Instagram is really where you spend most of your time online, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cause at first I started my page because I wanted to address and talk about my major, which at the time I was doing my bachelor degree. It's called Languages and Cultures for Mediation. So
Oh,
it's a little bit different, and it is really underrated in Italy, my country. So I wanted basically to have this Telegram page to share my experience and differ myself from the classic languages student, because usually people who are interested in language learning at university usually go to study literature. But I wanted to have like a more economic based background, so I decided to go the other way, and that's why my former studygram actually was Firano studies, so
oh.
that's how we started basically.
And then so you said your degree, mediation, language, what does that entail? Like, could you, I'm not sure what that degree is about, and you said it's underrated, so it's something that I'm not very familiar with either.
Yeah, basically the bachelor is centered towards learning two languages. In my
Hmm.
specific university, we study two languages at the
Okay.
same time, and we also have some economical, low-ish kind of background in order to be able to like work at companies for import export, be able to let the two parties communicate basically, so we can function basically as people who can do a lot of things, but
Mm.
mm, especially in a company that imports and exports a lot, we can be at least mediators can be really
Okay.
useful in that kind of sense. And there's also more of a humanistic kind of path. So you study also psychology, sociology, and that kind of figure really actually has people when they, like, for example, refugees or immigrants. So you have two branches basically, and you
Huh.
have to specialize depending on what you want to do. I chose the economic one, for example, because of course, English and Japanese are more economic centered kind of languages.
Huh. That's interesting. So it's kind of like a like it's not translation because translation is just translating, but
Yeah.
it's like a level up from that, like not to discredit like people who translate because there's like it's a specialized field as well, but it's like you kind of translate as well, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
but
yeah.
you are the
We
like you
can do
said
a
like
lot.
the mediator, yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you
We
have
can do a lot of things. I think that is more like a cross cultural kind of
Mhm.
figure that can actually help in many different ways, like for example with emails, with business meetings. So you actually can do a lot of things, not super professionally, but you can tackle a lot of different things within a company, for example, in my from my perspective or from my experience, because I studied mainly economic based things. So that is basically it.
Yeah, that is interesting because it's almost like if you have that, then you almost don't need like for a company, you almost don't need a translator at that point because then you have someone who can work with people. And then correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to understand
Mhm.
exactly, but it's because this is something that I'm really not familiar with at all because over here, in the States, everyone it's just all in English, so we don't have like that's why I wanted to meet with you so much because I wanted to learn about how the language learning process in school and everything over there. But if you have someone like if you were, doing that as a job in a company, then you kind of like you know the two languages so well that you're able to communicate with both sides and then create like whatever is needed within that language. So there's no like translation necessary because you communicate with them. So it's kind of nice because then you don't have to go through that process of translation, because when it's within translation, sometimes the meaning is lost or changes. Whereas if you have like a mediator, you have someone who really knows each language, you can communicate more clearly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is really cool. I think that is underrated, like you said.
Yeah, it's really underrated. Also, because right now, it's not anymore just a translating fact. So be able to communicate it, but also is the thing is that you have to translate the two cultures, because it's the cultural aspect of the languages and the countries, and of course the people, that really can make a difference in the communicating aspect between the two. Let's say companies, for example, because we have different sets of values. Our societies in each country are different. So this kind of figures, this kind of job, this kind of people really help with communicating through the cultural aspects more than the more linguistic one. So
yeah, and
it's
I
a
think
whole
that
another level, basically.
yeah, I think that's really important, and I think that that's where like just within translation, like that's where the meaning sometimes is lost because that culture isn't there, because it's not someone who really understands. It's someone who's just like communicating, okay, how do I get these words into this language? And it doesn't always work that way because it's not that. And it's something that I honestly am not even sure exactly how I would explain to someone, like how does that not work that way. But each language, like even more than just the words, you know, when you speak, you're expressing meaning that isn't necessarily the same using those same words in another language translated.
Yeah. Wow. Totally agree.
So you did that, and then right now you're doing your master's degree, right?
Exactly. Last year. So I'm going to graduate in a year.
Almost done. So in May or in next year?
October.
October. Okay.
In Italy, it works very differently. The college system, even from other countries, from the rest of Europe, it's really
let's
different.
talk about that, because I want to learn about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because our system is completely different. We basically almost don't have midterms. The majority of the exams in Italy are oral-based interviews. They're not. We still have lots of written tests, but they're not like quizzes. Technically, you have a question, then you have to write, for example, 1 or 2 pages long paragraphs at the moment that you're sitting the exam. So you don't have to write an essay, then you have to submit it. These kind of tests are almost unknown over here. Essays,
They're almost what?
Sorry. Unknown. We don't use them.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, you just cut out a little bit so I couldn't hear you. But
connection.
That is interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I was in Italy. I know I mentioned when we met before. I went there and I stayed with a couple of host families over there when I was 19. So that was a decade ago now, but that was a long time ago. But so it might have changed since then. But I do remember with the first family I stayed in, there was a girl there who was about my age and a little bit younger. I think she was in high school. And the school system over there at the time, at least for secondary school, was really interesting because they had like their high schools were not like ours where they're more like all of the subjects. It was very focused, more like trade school-ish.
Yeah.
It's still like that?
Yeah. We choose, actually, when we're about to finish middle school, we have to choose in which kind of high school we want to go based on the subjects and based on what we're interested in. Like, for example, I did the economics and marketing school when I was in high school. So I didn't go to the top class, like, for example, science school, math school, or maybe classical studies, like, for example, ancient Greek and Latin, or like psychology kind of school based. I went to a technical one in which I could learn a little bit more about how to work in a company, so accountability and accounted kind of things, and marketing mixed with languages though.
Okay,
So
so there were
it was
languages
already
in
like
there too. Like you had the
yeah,
option to learn languages as well,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is yeah, which is something I'm really envious of European people because we don't have like languages over here. We have like you can start in high school if you want to, and you kind of
Mhm.
have to, but it's not enough to where if you don't have a strong desire to do it, you're
Mm.
going to learn it. Whereas it seems like most of the Europeans they have just languages because they don't have choice.
Yeah, because we live in a very multicultural
Hmm.
continent, basically, and
Yeah.
each single country, even though they're kind of small compared to the U.S., each country has its own different language, and some of them are similar because we come from the same linguistic family. Others come from other linguistic families, but it's amazing because we share a lot of common history. So
Okay.
that's really interesting. But I would say that, yeah, we have a lot of possibilities to learn languages over here, but sometimes the quality is not great. So you just
Oh,
learn the basics. And
okay.
again, as in US, if you're
Hmm.
passionate, you
Right.
can get to a higher level.
Yeah, even
But
within some of the worst conditions, if you have that desire
yeah,
to do it, you will find a way to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Also, you have to find a good teacher, in my
It's true
opinion.
too. Yeah, it definitely helps. Yeah, the better the
Yeah.
teacher is, the more you can learn from that
Yeah, I
person.
have to say that at least for English and Spanish, I have been really lucky. So yeah, at least those two. German, unfortunately, suffered a lot because of this. French, well, I had two professors that were really good, but I just studied French for 3 years at middle school, so my level is like basic, is like
Okay.
A2 plus.
Hmm.
So, but it's just a matter of revising. Otherwise, it can get pretty high. Also, because of
Yeah.
course I'm Italian, I know Spanish, so French is just a matter of really being immersed in the language, and I can acquire it pretty easily. Also, because I was telling you last time that we met that it really depends also on when you leave in
Yeah.
Italy, because based also on your local dialect. It can be influenced by other languages. Like for example, my hometown dialect is really French based, so for me,
Okay.
French is not really a problem.
Oh, okay.
So that's
So,
also it.
are there how many dialects are there of Italian in there, or are there just like so
Or
many?
there are so many because basically they're kind of region based, and we're
Okay.
20 regions in Italy, but there are more nuances. Like for example, also within my region, which is Emilia Romagna, and the capital center is Bologna. We have two dialects: the Emilian one and the Romagnolo, because they
Oh,
can be
okay.
similar,
Two, just
but they're really different. Like for example, I understand better a person that is speaking Milanese dialect, so the one
mm,
from Milan, more than the Romagnolo one, which is weird,
okay.
but it's true because we have more similarities with Milan's dialect because it's
Huh.
also really French based, for example. While the other one is a little bit mixed with
Yeah.
other languages.
Huh. That's crazy that there's so many dialects just within
Yeah,
a country, because Italy is pretty close to like the size of California, and
yeah,
I'm imagining like having that many dialects. Because with Spanish, there's a ton of dialects, but it's understandable because it's like it's all of like South America. It's like bigger than
yeah,
the
exactly.
States,
Because
and then
yeah,
Spain is of course as well. But
yeah,
huh,
and
but
there
I
are
didn't
also
expect that.
languages, not
Hmm.
only dialects, because Sardinian,
Oh,
which was
okay.
formerly a dialect, now is a language. And also, so we have also different languages like Ladino,
Oh,
Latin, that is also spoken in Switzerland. And so yeah,
it's a lot.
there are so many also historical reasons because we speak so many different dialects. But gosh, I'm a linguistic geek, so
Me too. That's why we're having this conversation. Oh, I really want to ask you as well about your languages because you have quite a few of them. So your native Italian, of course, and
yeah,
then English is, I think most people, especially in Europe, they learn English in school because it's like that's
yeah.
usually the primary language, and then of like as a foreign language, and then what other languages do you speak?
Well, yeah, English, I would say it's almost my second language because I speak it basically every day. I still make mistakes, but it's just a continuous process of uh like shaping everything. Sometimes also my accent gets mixed because I mainly speak American English,
Oh yeah.
especially
Yeah, you
since
do.
it's pretty American, but
Hmm.
all my professors are from the UK, so sometimes it get
Oh,
mixed.
how'd you develop an American accent then?
I think through immersion, I would say, because when I was like in middle school, I used to watch a lot of movies, and they
Okay.
were mainly Hollywood
Yeah.
based.
We have a lot of
And
yeah.
yeah, I used to also listen to a lot of interviews because at the time I was really into Disney Channel kind of stuff, and they're all American. Like, for example, Miley Cyrus, High School Musical.
Hmm.
I grew up in that
Okay.
era, so I think
Okay.
that I got it pretty quickly. Yeah, I figured out the accent pretty quickly. Also, it's easier to mimic the American accent
Hmm.
instead of the British one. It's easier. At least in my opinion, it's easier.
Yeah. Oh.
And what else? Yeah, I also went to the US twice.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. That helps too.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I think I also perfected it over there.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Well, that makes sense then. Okay, because I was thinking then.
yeah, then I did 5 years of Spanish, so
Okay.
I would say I'm B2. I also got the certificate. I'm B2, so I'm pretty confident. Even though sometimes it gets mixed with Italian. So with
Mm.
my friends, I always
Okay.
say, no, I speak Italiano. I don't speak Spanish really that well.
Okay.
Then 3 years of French, so kind of upper beginner. 3 years of German, and I got those to B1 certificate. I'm intermediate at Japanese because I have been studying it at university for 5 years.
Mhm.
Well, 4 years. Next year will be 5 years. But
Okay.
I basically did on and off from Japanese even when I was in high school. So it's almost 10 years that I have been tackling Japanese
Definitely.
basically,
Okay.
and I have started Korean 1 year ago through Japanese. So
Okay.
I'm just mixing the things together
Yeah, I get that. It
just
helps.
to make everything more chaotic, basically.
Yeah, but it's actually it's nice because then you maximize your time that way because you practice one language and then you learn the other
Yeah,
language as well.
also because they're pretty similar. So it's like when
Hmm.
you're learning French from Spanish. So they can
Exactly. Yeah.
there you have lots of similarities. So for
Hmm.
rules, especially grammar rules, clicks really automatically.
Sometimes it's actually easier because they're more similar. You can compare them more easily. You
Yeah,
just have to it's just based on, each person if that works for them. Some
yeah,
people would get confused and then some people it's actually easier.
yeah. Because at the end, it's like you have to just translate it. You don't have to
Hmm.
understand how it works because you understood how it
Oh,
worked
it's true.
with already one of the two
Hmm.
languages. With the second
Yeah.
one, if they're similar or maybe they come from the same language family, it's just a matter of literally translating the things. It's not
That's
even
true.
trying to understand how it works. Because yeah, with Korean and Japanese, they have lots of similarities as well. Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese. Romanian is kind of doing things on its own, but it's still part
Yeah.
of the Romance language family.
Yeah,
So
which is really interesting too. But did we go into it with Romanian? So Romanian. Okay, let's touch on it at least for a few minutes. It's the Romance languages and Romanian, because it's crazy to me that that Romanian is part of is like one of the Romance languages because we always hear like the Latin-based languages and then there's
yeah,
Romanian but it's still one of the Romance languages. And I know you've
yeah,
studied this a bit. So with
yeah.
the Romance languages, what would
Yeah.
you like to share your thoughts on these Romance languages?
Well, I would say that basically, yeah, I have to say that first of all, I'm really lucky to be part of the Romance family
Oh.
language because, especially Spanish
Hmm.
is spoken by an enormous amount of people. Even though Castellano, so the one spoken in
Hmm.
Spain, and Latin American, they can be really different. It's amazing because you can use it basically as English, almost as a lingua franca, because maybe you won't understand the specific slang, but you can get by
Hmm.
pretty easily. with
Oh
at
yeah,
least
I
one
guess you
person.
can with Spanish because it is kind of like that. It's like with the although French has a lot too. Like it's spoken in quite a few
Yeah,
places as well, but
yeah,
it's really not like I feel like at least over here like for Americans a lot of them don't realize how widely spoken French is. And Spanish of course
mhm.
is more here. Maybe it's probably because we don't really have so much French here, at
Yeah.
least on the West
At least
Coast.
your neighbors have more French than you, of course, because in Quebec,
Yeah.
French is the official language. But Quebecan French and also variants and varieties of French spoken, for example, in Africa, they're really
Yeah,
different.
the
Actually,
Snoopy. Okay. He
we
had to
have a
make his
friend.
way.
We have a new friend
Yeah.
today. They're
And
really different.
yeah.
So I would say that they're not really intelligible as much as Spanish, I would say. But I haven't been spoken French. I haven't spoken French for a while. So if you're a native, or maybe if you speak French, guys, in the comments, please correct me, because of course I don't hold the truth. So
Yeah. I think it might be and these are just my thoughts, but I think it might be partially because of Spanish. It is more like more in one area, like in Latin
yeah,
America, it's Spanish. Whereas
they're
French
all
is
close to
more,
each other.
yeah, French is more scattered. So there's like
Exactly.
France, of course, you have parts of, you have countries in Africa, you have some of the Asian countries, you have, it's like all over, and you
Yeah,
have Canada, of course, and it's,
also Asian.
yeah, and that probably has to do with why there are so many
Yeah,
variations of the language that are, like you said, unintelligible because they're so
yeah.
far from each other.
They're like pieces of a puzzle, but they're not close to each other. Like,
Hmm.
for example, in Latin and South America.
Yeah.
So so yeah. I would probably say it's also like this. That was a really clever suggestion, actually.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And then Romania. Okay, last one. Let's touch on Romanian.
Yeah, because
And
Italian would just pick it in Italy, a little
hmm,
bit of Switzerland, and then immigrants. And then
okay.
there are immigrants, and I know for sure that there are lots of Italians in the U.S.
Yeah.
Some of my really far relatives are in the U.S. Both
Oh.
from my both parts of my family, so both from dad and both from mom. I would say. No, both from my dad, but from my grandparents, both. So my dad and my mom's dad. So
Okay.
there, I have some relatives as well. Probably in the East Coast, because it's the most popular one. Like, for example, almost everyone in New Jersey has an Italian relative, basically.
Hmm.
So that they were saying this to me. They're like, almost everyone is Italian in New Jersey. They basically say,
Huh.
"No, I'm Italian," or even maybe it's just maybe just the grandma out of the
Yeah.
family is
Hmm.
Italian, so they're Italian
Yeah.
automatically.
Well, the other thing that's interesting too is that when people immigrate, it seems like there's a tendency to immigrate,
Yeah,
like
they
people
gather
from certain countries to together,
they
like to
gather
certain That's why we have like in larger cities, like here, not so much because I'm not really in the city. I'm like north. I'm in Riverside, which is north of San Diego and east of Los Angeles.
Oh,
But if you
okay.
go to either of those cities or counties, you go to Los Angeles or San Diego, you have like those areas that are like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
where there's more Chinese people, where there's more Italian people, and
Connections.
then
Yeah,
it's kind of nice for us too because it's like, man, I want some amazing Italian food. I'm gonna go down to this area over
yeah,
here.
yeah. That's why there's also Little Italy in New
Hmm.
York, for example. So because they all gather together. But yeah, it's because people uh feel alone, don't know the language, so they gather together. And sometimes they recreate their local tradition because they feel the nostalgia of it. So I actually saw a lot of videos, both on YouTube and TikTok, I would say, of Italian descendants that gather together basically in the driveways of the um, of the neighborhood, and they were preparing tomato sauce like in the very
Oh.
old tradition way. In
Hmm.
New Jersey, I would say, yeah, probably was Jersey. So yeah, but it was really interesting because this was a tradition, well, is a tradition from the south of Italy. Uh, at the north, in the northern part of Italy, we don't really do that. So it's also really interesting to see um all these communities from the south, they moved to
Mhm.
the US, and it's really unique because these are traditions that we don't even have in Italy
Anymore,
sometimes,
because yeah, because
or maybe
there's
we or we
oh
lost
yeah,
them because sometimes because
huh.
the southern part of Italy is more connected to the rural part, the traditional part, while the north is much more yeah, companies, trading. So
That
at
is
the center is a
interesting.
mix.
Yeah, that they take with them what they remember, and then it's like it evolves while they're gone, and then you're like, oh well,
Yeah,
this
the
is the
north
Italy that
has
I
like
remember, but then it evolves from any
yeah,
country, they take with them what they know. And,
yeah,
huh.
and yeah. Last but not least, we have Romania and
Yes.
Romanian. They're still part of the Roman language family because
Mhm.
actually Roman is the one that is more Latin based, which means that
Oh,
still is really connected to the ancient Latin because they have certain
mm,
grammar structures that are really ancient. They are more connected to ancient Latin than nowadays Romance languages, like for example Italian, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. So that's why it's still into the Romance language because it's actually is more connected to Latin, but it got influenced by Slavic languages,
I wonder
mainly.
why no
Uh,
one includes it in like it's like Latin based. Like if you look up like Latin based languages, Romanian like it's not usually there. Why does he
well,
say that it's so
no,
much?
in my books is there. In my books is
Uh,
there.
okay.
There.
I'm reading a book now that's on like the it's like comparative grammar of Latin. But it's only the other ones. It's only Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. Did I miss one? Spanish, Italian, of
Italian.
course, Italian. Yes, and then Romanian. It's like sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, because sometimes there are grammar rules that are really different from the
Mm,
ones that we
okay,
currently use
that makes
in
sense.
Western European languages.
Mm,
Because yeah, Romanian was heavily influenced by Slavic languages, but it didn't also evolve like the other ones. Because if you think geographically, Romania is really far and is distant from Spain, Portugal, French, in Italy. Because if you think about the geography, all the four countries are some way connected with each other because
true.
they basically form like an arch. There's
Yeah.
Italy, French, Spain, and Portugal. So they're
Okay.
kind of connected and
Yeah,
they
they're all
influence each
together.
other.
Yeah.
There's also the Mediterranean Sea that connects the
Mm,
country. So those evolved together, like
yeah.
basically a pack.
Makes sense.
But
And you have Romania.
but Romanian, which was actually conquered by the Romans
Mhm.
way back, like I would say around right. I don't remember
That's
to be
okay.
honest, but back in the days it was conquered by the Romans, so that's why I decided to speak Latin.
Oh.
And so the main language of the inhabitants of the natives there got mixed with Latin,
Mm.
but then the Latin spoken there didn't evolve with the rest of the languages of the other of the western part of Europe. So
Oh, so
basically
it's
got over
more like based in Latin than the other, like you were
exactly.
saying. It's
It's
okay.
it's like purer. Let's say like this. It's
Mm.
like pure Latin that evolved on its own. So, but still really heavily Latin based, and then it got mixed with Slavic languages,
Huh.
especially during the Soviet Union, because they were. I think it was compulsory to speak Russian back in the days. Because I have a couple of friends that are Romanian, and their parents were basically they went to school when there was the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were. I think it was compulsory to speak Russian. So that's also why they
Mm.
got really mixed nowadays, especially.
Okay, that makes sense. So they got pulled into like more of the languages like nearby,
Yeah.
and then especially Russian and all the languages over there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other languages formed their like a clique over here
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
That
So
makes
that's
sense.
it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I really could go on about this, and I'm probably going to. I'm going to spend at some point. I really want to spend some time looking at the Romanian language because I'm really interested in it now. But we'll go ahead and wrap up this here, and then anyone who wants to continue the discussion in the comments, feel free to ask any questions, and I will be there responding. Michelle may or may
Yeah,
not
yeah.
pop in.
I will definitely
She's welcome
look at the
to.
comments
And I
if
will.
anyone is interested, yeah, sorry. And if anyone is interested, you can just DM me on Instagram for more information about the linguistics, because linguistics was also part of my major, so I studied a little bit of linguistics as well.
Okay, yeah, and I will also link those down below in the description to Instagram and YouTube, and so you can go and you can follow her for more language learning and linguistics and all of these languages that she speaks and studies. And that's it. All right, thank you guys so much, and we will wrap this up. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Sign off.
I don't know, because I would otherwise I would speak too much.
Okay, we'll end here.
So I'm just
All
gonna
right,
stop here.
this is it. Okay, we're off.